Dig deeper with Richard Johnson, a lecturer in US politics at Queen Mary University of London. Richard, thanks for being with me. How are you doing?
Good morning. Good to be with you.
Oh, I'm glad you're here. The Senate cleared a key procedural vote to advance Trump's big, beautiful bill. What were the most significant overnight changes that helped to shift that vote, and who was behind all of them?
Well, one of the changes, although it sounds small, when you have such a narrowly divided Senate, is made a big difference, was a change to the work requirements for the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, SNAP, commonly known as food stamps, for the states of Alaska and Hawaii. You might think, why are Alaska and Hawaii now exempt from the work requirements for the next 2 years? Well, because one of the key holdout Republican senators, Lisa Murkowski, happens to be senator from Hawaii. And she was one of those people that we thought might vote against it, which could have required, at best, a tie-breaking vote from Senator Vance from Republicans' perspective, but actually she was able to be brought round on this motion to proceed. So there are lots of tweaks that are going on. You can't do things that are too big because this is going through this process of reconciliation, and each time you make a major change, it has to go to the Senate parliamentarian, and whether it falls within these fiscal rules, procedural rules of the reconciliation process. So every little change then might have a ripple effect throughout the bill. But this was seen as one that was significant enough to make the move on, and it won over Senator Murkowski's vote for now, at least.
All right. And President Trump is pushing for a July 4th deadline to have all of this wrapped up. How realistic do you think that is now? And did that messaging influence the Senate's negotiations?
I think having a deadline does concentrate minds, and also members want to go back to their states and districts for the 4th of July celebrations in their towns and cities. So that's also a kind of a pre-existing deadline that already exists in the minds of members. In terms of how likely that is, the Senate, I think one of the things that's really important for listeners to understand is the Senate is a much more decentralized body than the House. So in the House, the House leadership, namely the Speaker, has a lot of control over the timetable and the procedure, and can push things through quite quickly. And Nancy Pelosi, as Speaker, was sort of the master of this. In the Senate, individual members of the Senate have a lot more room to slow down procedures. And so we're seeing this right now, where Senator Schumer, it could have been any senator, it didn't have to be Senator Schumer, can ask for the bill to be read in its entirety. And as this is a 1,000-page bill, that's taking some time. At the end of this, as your colleagues mentioned earlier, then senators are allowed to propose amendments to the bill. These amendments are likely to fail, but this is what they call a vote-a-rama, and it's one of those privileges that senators have. I think the record is 44 amendments being voted on in one of these vote-a-ramas. So of course, each time you have that, you can hold open time for voting. It slows down the process. So I think 4th of July is not impossible, but it's going to be difficult, and it will probably require some moral suasion, some pressure behind the scenes on some senators to exercise some restraint on this.
Well, let's talk about that a bit. So House Republicans have already spoken up about their concerns around the bill. The Senate version has been called insulting, disgusting, and it's been reported that the bill could add more than $4 trillion to debt over the next decade. How are Senate Republicans defending all of that? And what are the biggest hurdles that this bill is going to face in the House?
Look, the big overarching reason why Senate Republicans are supporting this bill is because it's a major tax cut. And for many Republicans, certainly of a certain vintage, one of the reasons they went into politics was to cut taxes. There's obviously an important debate to be had about who shoulders the costs of paying for those taxes. And in this instance, those costs are being paid for by serious cuts and extra requirements that have been put on eligibility for certain social programs like Medicaid, health insurance for low-income Americans, and the SNAP program, food stamps, that I mentioned before. You know, Republicans used to talk about being fiscally prudent, about being a party that was about managing the budget of the country like you'd manage a household budget. Yet actually one of the important changes that's come through in this Senate bill is that the debt ceiling which was going to be lifted already by $4 trillion under the original House bill, the senators have now increased that, and so the debt ceiling is going to be lifted by an additional $5 trillion. So they're anticipating that the U.S. Debt is going to grow and grow and grow under this Republican Congress and Republican president. And that's a major kind of priority shift, I think, from the Republican Party of say, even compared to the early George W. Bush era.
Okay, Richard Johnson, learned a lot from that. Appreciate it. Thank you for being with me.
My pleasure. Thanks very much.